few months ago, I was on a call with a founder doing around 1.3 million ARR. He had a content person on the team, he was running LinkedIn ads, and a sales guy was doing outbound. On paper, everything looked like a functioning marketing operation. And then at some point in the conversation, he said, "Frank, we're doing all of this, but I genuinely can't point to any of it and say, that's where our last 3 deals came from." That sentence. I hear some version of it from almost every founder I talk to at this stage. It's not that they're doing nothing, they're actually doing quite a lot. Posting on LinkedIn, running some ads, maybe they've got the newsletter going, but none of it connects to anything. And when a deal comes in, nobody can trace it back to a specific motion. It just kind of appeared. That's not marketing, that's activity with a marketing label on it. And the difference between that and what actually drives consistent pipeline is what I want to break down today. I'm Frank Husman. I built and sold my own B2B SaaS company, and for the last 3 years, I've been working with over 40 founders on go-to-market. That conversation I just described, I've had it more times than I can count. Different founders, different products, different ARR levels, same problem. And the reason it keeps showing up is always the same. It's not a tactic that's missing, it's a system. Let me start with the assumption most founders bring into this problem, because it's what gets them into trouble. The assumption is we need to do more marketing, more content, more channels, more budget. If we increase the volume of output, the pipeline will follow. Sounds logical, right? But it's wrong. Here's what actually happens. A founder starts posting on LinkedIn twice a week. Engagements look decent, so they add a newsletter. Then they start running ads because someone told them they should be building an audience. Then they hire a content person to keep up with the workload. And 6 months later, they're spending more on marketing than ever, and the pipeline is roughly the same. The problem isn't effort. The problem is that none of these things are connected to each other. Content goes out, the ads are running, outbound happens, but there's no system linking them, no feedback loop, no signal that tells you who's interested at what stage and why. And without that, you're doing random acts of marketing and hoping the right people find you at the right time. Modern B2B buyers don't work that way. Winter surveyed 100 B2B buyers and 71% said their research phase happens entirely without vendor involvement. By the time they talk to your sales team, they've already formed a view. They've looked at your content, they've seen how you explain your market, they've decided whether you actually understand their world. If you're not shaping that research phase, if your expertise isn't visible in the places buyers look, then the deal is half over before it starts. That's not a traffic problem, that's a system problem. Okay, so what does the system look like? I call it the Founder-Led GTM Engine. And the reason I call it an engine matters, because an engine has components that work together. Pull one out, and the whole thing loses power. But most SaaS companies are running the components separately and wondering why nothing moves. It starts with capturing the founder's insight. This is where almost every company starts wrong. The founder is usually the best person in the company at explaining the product, the market, and why competitors fall short. They've had hundreds of sales conversations. They know the objections. They know what actually tips the deal. But that knowledge lives in their head. It's not in the market. So the first move is extraction. One structured session per month to pull out the founder's thinking. What shifted in the market? Where buyers got stuck? What questions keep coming up in sales calls? What the company believes about how the space should work? And this isn't a marketing interview, it's a strategic debrief that happens to produce content. And what comes out of it isn't a list of topics, it's a map of the market as the founder sees it, where buyers are confused, what objections keep surfacing, where competitors are weak, what the company believes that others in the space won't say out loud. That's the raw material. And the reason it's valuable isn't because it's interesting, it's because no one else has it. Every generic SaaS company is producing the same content from the same playbooks. The founder who's had 200 sales conversations has a point of view that can be replicated by a content team working from a brief. From there, you turn that insight into authority. Not just content, authority. And there's the difference. Content is volume. Authority is what happens when buyers read something you wrote and think, this person actually understands my problem. That changes the sales conversation before it even begins. And the test I use, does the buyer finish reading this and think, I already knew that? Or do they think, I've been describing this wrong? If you're confirming what people already believe, you're producing content. And if you're reframing how they see their problem, you're building authority. And authority means your language becomes their language. When a buyer walks into a sales call and uses the same framing you've been publishing for 6 months, that's a signal it's working. At that point, you're not competing on features, you've already shaped how they evaluate the category. Then you amplify it to the right people consistently. This is where LinkedIn becomes a real distribution engine. Not because you're doing LinkedIn, but because your ideal customers keep seeing your thinking. The goal isn't reach, it's relevance to a specific type of buyer. And here's the part most founders miss completely, signal capture. When you have authority and distribution working, buyers start engaging. They like your posts, visit your website, read your articles, watch your videos. Those are signals, not vanity metrics, and they are actual indicators of intent. And if you're not capturing and acting on those signals, you're doing the hard part and skipping the payoff. Tom at Clock Assist, a client of ours, put it well. He said, the intent signals from your campaigns give us exactly the insights we need to approach the right accounting firms. This saves us time and helps us gain new customers. They weren't doing more outreach, they were doing smarter outreach, based on who had already shown interest. Here's what those signals look like in practice. Someone watches 80% of a video. Someone visits your pricing page 3 times in 2 weeks. Someone engages with 4 posts in a row and then goes quiet. None of these are loud signals. None of them say, I'm ready to buy. But together, they're a pattern. And patterns tell you where to focus. The problem is that most companies aren't set up to service them. The signals exist. LinkedIn Analytics has them, your website has them, but nobody is really connecting it to outbound. So what happens? Sales is working cold lists while warm prospects are sitting in the data, waiting to be noticed. And then the last piece, pipeline acceleration. This is where signals become conversations. Sales isn't cold anymore. They're reaching out to people who've already been exposed to the founder's thinking, who've engaged with the content, who understand what the company does. Those calls are completely different. The trust is already there. Robert at Story Chief, a client of ours, experienced this immediately. Within the first 10 days of publishing video content, he had 2 demo requests directly traceable to what we'd put out. And he wasn't doing anything differently on the sales side. The content had done the work before the conversation started. Because when the content is genuinely insightful, people treat the person who made it differently. They arrive pre-sold on your thinking. That's the loop. Authority feeds signals, signals feed pipeline, and pipeline tells you what's working so you can sharpen the authority further. Each part reinforces the others. That's what it makes a system instead of a collection of tactics. So what does this actually mean for a founder doing 800K or 1.5 million ARR? It means you stop doing marketing you can't trace. Every piece of content, every ad, every LinkedIn post has a job, and it feeds something downstream. You're not posting because you should be posting. You're building a signal layer that tells you who is in the market. It means your sales team stops working cold. When buyers have already been exposed to your thinking, the first conversation is warmer. Sales cycles get shorter, not because your product changed, but because trust was already being built before they ever booked a call. And it means that the company stops depending entirely on the founder's personal network. Because for most founders, the best deals still come through them directly, through their connections, their outreach, their reputation. But that doesn't scale. What scales is getting the founder's inside out into the market so it reaches buyers the founder will never personally meet. And there's also a compounding effect that's hard to see until it's working. Every piece of content you've published is still out there. A YouTube video from 6 months ago still gets views. An article from last year still ranks. Unlike a sales call that ends when the call ends, content keeps working. The ROI isn't linear, it builds over time. That's what makes it fundamentally different from any other marketing activity you're running. And if you don't build that, you hit the ceiling most companies hit around 1.5 million ARR. You're working harder, team is bigger, but growth is stalling, and not because the product isn't good, but because the market doesn't fully understand what makes it different. So here's what I want you to walk away with. The problem isn't that you don't know how to market. Most founders I work with are smart people who figured out harder things than content strategy. The problem is that you're running tactics where you need a system, and those are very different things. Tactics are isolated, a LinkedIn post, an ad campaign, cold outreach sequence. Each one might work for a moment, but they don't feed each other. And when you stop doing them, the pipeline dries up. A system builds on itself. Authority accumulates, signals get sharper, and sales conversations get warmer. And over time, the whole engine gets more effective, not because you're doing more, but because parts are actually connected. So you don't have a marketing problem, you have a system problem. And that's good news, because a system can be installed. In the next video, I'm going to show you the simplest GTM system that actually drives SaaS revenue, stripped back to what really matters, without the complexity most founders think they need. And if this changed how you think about your GTM, please subscribe. I'll keep unpacking how SaaS founders build go-to-market that actually compounds. I'm Frank Husman, and I'll see you in the next one.